7 chilling Halloween disappearances that still haunt the night. For most of us, Halloween is a night of harmless fun, make-believe monsters, and fake frights. But for some, the horror becomes all too real. Imagine a loved one heads out for a Halloween party and just never comes home. There's no note, no trace, just an empty space where a life used to be. On a night when the line between the real and the supernatural feels a little blurry, some people simply vanish into the shadows, leaving behind a chilling mystery that can last for decades. These are 7 of those stories. Section 1. Patricia Spencer and Pamela Hobley. Our first story takes us back to Friday, October 31st, 1969, in the quiet town of Oscoda, Michigan. It was a huge day for the students at Oscoda High School. It was homecoming. The air was buzzing with plans for the big football game and the Halloween parties that would follow. For 2 teenage girls, 16-year-old Patricia, Patty, Spencer, and 15-year-old Pamela, Pam, Hobley, it should have been a day packed with fun. Instead, it became the first day of an agonizing mystery that's now stretched over half a century. Patty Spencer was described as vibrant and warm, with long brownish blonde hair and blue eyes. She was well-liked and very close to her family. Pam Hobley was a bit taller, with long brown hair, and was proudly wearing a new engagement ring from her fiancé, who was serving in Vietnam. Her sister later said that Pam was the happiest she'd ever been. What's strange is that by all accounts, Patty and Pam weren't close friends. They were just acquaintances who ran in different circles, which makes the fact that they disappeared together even more perplexing. That Halloween afternoon, both girls were supposed to be in class, but decided to skip. The last time anyone officially saw them, they were walking along River Road, away from the school, sometime after 2 p.m. They didn't have their purses or any ID with them. They were just walking, 2 girls on an autumn afternoon, seemingly without a care in the world. As evening fell, a ripple of concern began to spread. Pam was supposed to meet her fiancé's brother for the homecoming game and a party. Patty was also expected at a party. When neither of them showed up, frantic phone calls started crisscrossing town. Pam's mother, Louise, felt her anxiety grow with every call she made. She soon learned that Patty Spencer was also missing, and a sick feeling dawned on both families. The girls had probably vanished together. In those first few days, police leaned toward the most common theory for missing teens. They were runaways. A rumor even started that they might have headed to Flint, Michigan, about 100 miles south. But their families never bought it. The girls took nothing with them. No clothes, no money, nothing. Pam, especially, was joyfully planning her future. The idea that she'd just walk away from her family and her new engagement seemed impossible. As the runaway theory crumbled, the grim suspicion of foul play took its place. But the investigation hit one roadblock after another. A witness did come forward, saying he'd given the girls a ride that afternoon from River Road to downtown Oscoda, dropping them near a gas station. He was investigated and cleared, but his story confirmed they made it to the center of town. After that, the trail went cold. It's as if they stepped out of that car and into thin air. Over the years, theories piled up. Investigators came to believe the girls were likely abducted and murdered. In 1985, a tip led police to a barn where an informant claimed the girls were buried. Cadaver dogs were brought in, but an extensive search turned up nothing. Then, in 2013, police announced they had a person of interest, but there wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest. Just a few years ago, Michigan State Police formed a special cold case team to bring fresh eyes to the mystery. They're still hoping that new forensic tech, or maybe a witness finally breaking their silence, could provide the answers the Spencer and Hobley families have been waiting for. The 2 girls, just casual acquaintances in life, are now forever linked by their disappearance. 2 ghosts of a Halloween night. Their story a haunting fixture in their small Michigan town. Section 2. Nima Louise Carter. On Halloween night of 1977 in Lawton, Oklahoma, 19-month-old Nima Louise Carter was asleep in her crib. Her parents, George and Rose, had put her to bed for the night. Nima was their bright, curious toddler, a quick learner who'd already figured out how to stack kitchen drawers to climb up and explore the cabinets. That night, as she slept, a real monster was about to shatter their world. Sometime during the night, Rose Carter woke up feeling a cold draft. She got up to check on Nima and walked into her daughter's room, straight into a parent's worst nightmare. The window was open, the screen had been taken off, and the crib was empty. Nima was gone. George and Rose frantically searched the house and the yard, calling her name into the night. But there was no sign of her. It was horribly clear this wasn't a case of a wandering toddler. She had been taken from her bed. The investigation started fast, but was immediately plagued by a terrifying lack of evidence. There were no signs of a struggle, no ransom note, nothing to explain who took the baby or why. The community was gripped by fear. A child being stolen from her own room was unthinkable. Volunteers combed the area, but every search led to a dead end. For 2 agonizing months, the Carters lived in a state of suspended horror, clinging to the hope that Nima would be found alive. That hope was brutally extinguished on December 10, 1977. Nima's tiny body was discovered inside an abandoned refrigerator, left in a vacant house not far from her home. The cause of death was suffocation. The investigation was now a homicide case, and suspicion eventually fell on a woman named Jacqueline Rubidoux. The case against her was built on a chillingly similar crime from the year before. In 1976, twin toddlers had been abducted in Lawton and found 2 days later in a refrigerator in an abandoned house. One of the twins survived and later identified Rubidoux as the person who had locked them inside. Based on this disturbing pattern, Rubidoux was indicted for the murder of Nima Louise Carter. But the legal process would only bring more heartbreak for the Carter family. The case against Jacqueline Rubidoux was ultimately dismissed for lack of evidence, and she was never retried for Nima's murder. To this day, no one has ever been held officially responsible for the abduction and death of the 19-month-old girl. Nima's story is a particularly dark stain on the history of Halloween crimes. A child was stolen, her life was taken, and a prime suspect walked free. The trail of evidence has long gone cold, and the questions from that terrifying night in 1977 remain. Who climbed through that window? Why did they choose that house, that child? For the Carter family, these questions have festered for over 4 decades, a painful, unending echo of the night their daughter was taken. Section 3. Christy Lynn Vork. The year is 1982, in Tacoma, Washington. For 13-year-old Christy Lynn Vork, life was already complicated. She was living with a foster family, trying to navigate the tough terrain of being a teenager without a permanent home. On Halloween night, that complicated life took a turn into the completely unknown. Christy stepped out into the night and simply disappeared. The details around Christy's last known moments are frustratingly thin. We just know she was there one moment and gone the next. There was no known fight, no note, nothing dramatic that happened before she vanished. Early in the investigation, a possible sighting of Christy at a bus depot in nearby Seattle gave weight to the theory that she might have been a runaway. It's a theory that, on the surface, makes some sense. For a kid in a precarious living situation, the idea of escape can be powerful. But one crucial detail casts a long shadow of doubt over that explanation. Christy Lynn Vork had no history of running away. It just wasn't in her character to leave without a word. Her foster family and those who knew her insisted this was completely unlike her. And that fact alone pivots the case from a probable runaway story to a potential abduction. So if she didn't run away, the question gets much darker. What happened to her? Halloween provides the perfect cover for predators. The streets are full of people, many in costume, and the joyful chaos can easily mask something sinister. Could Christy have trusted the wrong person, someone who took advantage of the holiday to commit a terrible crime? The investigation never found any solid evidence of an abduction, but a lack of evidence isn't proof that nothing happened. Without a body or a crime scene, authorities were left with little more than speculation. They couldn't prove she was taken, but they also couldn't prove she left on her own. She was simply gone. As the years stretched into decades, Christie's case file gathered dust. No new leads came in. Her DNA was entered into national missing persons databases, a silent beacon hoping to one day get a match with unidentified remains. But so far, nothing. Christie's story is a quiet tragedy. Unlike cases filled with dramatic twists, hers is a story defined by a void. She's one of the many vulnerable children who can slip through the cracks. Her status as a foster child might have contributed to her case getting less media attention at the time, a sad reality when some cases capture the national spotlight while others fade away. Today, Christy would be in her 50s. Did she run away and start a new life? Or did she meet a terrible fate on that long-ago Halloween night? Without answers, her disappearance is a chilling reminder that sometimes the quietest mysteries are the most unsettling. Section 4. William Bill Dudley. Our next case takes us to Halloween night, 1993, in the rural outskirts of Winchester, Virginia. This story isn't about a stranger in the dark, but a violent domestic situation that ended with a man vanishing completely. 35-year-old William Bill Dudley was a father and an auto body repairman who, according to his girlfriend, had a temper when he drank. On this night, that toxic mix of alcohol and anger would set the stage for his disappearance. Bill lived in a trailer on property owned by his girlfriend Cindy Benner's grandmother. Cindy and their young daughter lived in the main house. Also living nearby were Cindy's relative, Roger Benner Jr., and his friend, Glenn Kearns. According to Cindy, the night started with a phone call around 9:30 p.m. Bill had been drinking, and Cindy, knowing how he could get, asked him not to come over. He ignored her. A short time later, he was at her door. Cindy said Bill seemed calm, so she let him in. But once inside, he flew into a rage and hit her, fracturing her nose. The noise woke up Cindy's grandmother and their daughter. It also got the attention of Roger Benner and Glenn Kearns, who had been drinking with Bill earlier. They came over to intervene. The confrontation spilled outside, escalating into a full-blown brawl between the three men. At some point, Glenn Kearns grabbed a baseball bat and hit Bill with it. After that blow, the fight seemed to die down. Roger and Glenn left. Bill, now seemingly calmed, started apologizing to Cindy. But just then, another car pulled up. It was Cindy's mother, who reportedly did not get along with Bill. When she arrived, Bill turned and began stumbling back toward his own trailer. This was the last time anyone ever admits to seeing William Dudley. In the immediate aftermath, no one was that alarmed. Bill had a history of leaving for a few days to cool off after fights, but he would always call his mother. A few days later, Cindy went to check his trailer. What she found was disturbing. Bill's wallet, keys, and other personal items were sitting on his table. He hadn't packed a bag or taken his essentials. He had just walked away from the fight and disappeared. When 2 weeks passed with no word, totally out of character for him, his mother knew something was desperately wrong. On December 5, 1993, over a month after he was last seen, William Dudley was officially reported missing. The investigation was complicated from the start. The last people to see him alive had all been in a violent fight with him. Roger Benner and Glenn Kearns were both questioned, but without a body, the case stalled. Is it possible Bill, maybe suffering from a head injury from the bat, wandered off into the woods and died from exposure? It's plausible, but extensive searches of the area turned up nothing. The other, more sinister theory is that the fight didn't really end when it appeared to. Did the altercation continue after he stumbled away, with a more fatal outcome? Could his body have been disposed of that night? The fact that his wallet and keys were left behind strongly suggests he didn't leave on his own and probably never even made it back to his trailer. Decades have passed. The people involved have maintained their stories, and without new evidence, there's not much investigators can do. William Dudley walked away from a fight and into oblivion, leaving behind only questions and a family that has waited 30 years for an answer. Section 5. Hyunjong Cindy Song. In the fall of 2001, Hyunjong Cindy Song was a 21-year-old senior at Penn State University with a bright future. On Halloween, she did what countless college students do. She put on a costume, in her case, a bunny outfit, and went to a party at the Players nightclub in State College, Pennsylvania. Early in the morning on November 1st, a friend dropped her off at her apartment complex. She was seen walking inside, and then she was gone. When Cindy didn't show up for her classes or her 2 jobs, her friends reported her missing on November 4th. Police entered her apartment and found a scene that was both eerily normal and deeply confusing. There were no signs of a struggle. Her backpack and cell phone were there, suggesting she'd made it home safely. She had even taken off the false eyelashes from her costume, an intimate detail that made it seem like she'd started her routine of getting ready for bed. But other key items were missing. Her purse, with her license and credit cards, was gone. The rest of her bunny costume was also gone. This created a bizarre timeline. Why would she take off her eyelashes but then leave the apartment again, apparently in her costume, at 4 a.m., leaving her cell phone behind? Police were baffled. It was, as one officer put it, like she vanished into thin air. The investigation looked into a few possibilities. Police thought she might have walked to a nearby 24-hour supermarket she often visited, but by the time they checked, the surveillance tapes from that night had already been recorded over. Then, a strange tip came from a woman in Philadelphia, almost 200 miles away. The witness claimed she saw a woman who looked like Cindy in the city's Chinatown district, crying for help from inside a car with a man. Police released a sketch of the man, but the witness's story reportedly kept changing, and the lead went nowhere. Years went by, and the case grew cold. Then, in 2003, it took a shocking turn when it became linked to one of Pennsylvania's most notorious criminals, Hugo Selinski. An informant named Paul Weekly claimed that Selinski and an accomplice had abducted a young Asian woman from the State College area around the time Cindy disappeared. This lead gained horrifying traction when police discovered at least a dozen bodies buried in Selinski's backyard. For a moment, it seemed the mystery of Cindy's song might finally be solved. But DNA testing confirmed that none of the remains belonged to Cindy. Selinski's alleged accomplice couldn't confirm the story. He was one of the people found buried in the yard. While Selinski was convicted of other murders, no direct evidence has ever tied him to Cindy's disappearance. The only link remains the unverified word of a police informant. The case is now suspended in this state of uncertainty. Cindy's song made it home. She walked through her door, set down her bag, and then something happened. Was she lured out? Was she taken from her home? The bizarre clues she left behind, the missing purse and costume, the abandoned phone, paint a picture of final moments that no one can decipher. For nearly a quarter of a century, her family has waited for an answer, haunted by the image of a girl in a bunny costume who walked out of a Halloween party and into an enduring mystery. Section 6. Cameron A. Hardman. Not all Halloween disappearances are decades-old cold cases. Some are jarringly recent, a reminder that the unthinkable can still happen today. That's the case for 31-year-old Cameron Hardman, who vanished on Halloween night, 2011. Cameron was last seen in Sharon Hill, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia. That Monday evening, he was on his way to visit friends. He left an address on Newland Avenue in his black 2001 BMW, heading for a home on Carmack Street in Philadelphia. He never arrived. That short journey became a path into nothingness. Cameron Hardman hasn't been seen or heard from since. For his family, this was completely out of character. Cameron's mother told reporters he had no criminal history and had never just left without warning. He was a reliable person, so his sudden silence was an immediate red flag. A week later, on November 7th, there was a major break in the case, but it only made things more confusing. Cameron's BMW was found abandoned on North 2nd Street in Philadelphia. Chillingly, it was just about 7 blocks from the Carmack Street address where he was supposed to be. He was so close, yet he never made it. Inside the car, police found Cameron's wallet and his cell phone. This was a profoundly disturbing discovery. It pretty much ruled out the idea that he'd run away to start a new life. People who choose to disappear usually take their money, their ID, and their phone. Cameron left all of it. It also made robbery seem like an unlikely motive. If someone attacked him for his money, why leave the wallet? The scene suggests that whatever happened to Cameron, it happened fast. He either parked his car and was confronted, or he was forced to stop. With no signs of a struggle, investigators were left with very little to go on. He was classified as an endangered missing person, but the investigation quickly hit a wall. Cameron's case is so perplexing because of its sheer lack of clues. There was no known conflict, no strange behavior, and no obvious motive for anyone to harm him. He was just a man on his way to see his friends on Halloween, a routine event that ended in a complete mystery. The discovery of his car and belongings feels like a taunt, a collection of clues that should explain everything, but instead explain nothing at all. More than a decade later, the file on his disappearance remains open but inactive, a chilling example of how someone can be erased in the space of just a few city blocks. Section 7. Christina Lynn Bastion. Our final case brings us to the high desert of Southern California. On Halloween night, 2015, 34-year-old Christina Lynn Bastion, an English teacher at Silverado High School, was at a friend's house in Apple Valley. Christina struggled with bipolar disorder, and in the early morning hours of November 1st, she became upset and abruptly left. She left her wallet and glasses behind, but took her small dog, Coco, and drove off in her pickup truck. It was the last time anyone who knew her saw her alive. On Sunday morning, the first piece of the puzzle was found. Christina's pickup truck was discovered abandoned along a highway in the neighboring community of Morongo Valley. The truck was empty and had scratches and dents down both sides, as if it had scraped against something. There was no sign of Christina or her dog. The discoveries that followed painted an even more baffling picture. Later that day, some of Christina's personal belongings, her guitar, jewelry boxes, photos, were found strewn along a highway in another nearby area. A few miles from there, her backpack was found on a dirt road. It was as if her life had been unpacked and discarded piece by piece across the desert. Then, nearly a month after she disappeared, a friend of the family spotted a picture of Coco, Christina's dog, on a website for lost pets. It turned out the dog had been found back in Apple Valley just hours after Christina disappeared. Coco was safe, but the fact that the dog was found and Christina wasn't suggested she may have met with foul play after becoming separated from her pet. Investigators are faced with a few troubling possibilities. One is that Christina, in an agitated state, drove erratically through the desert, scattering her belongings before wandering off into the unforgiving landscape on foot, where she could have easily become lost. Another, more sinister theory is that she encountered someone after she left her friend's house. Given her vulnerable state, she could have been a target. Perhaps someone offered her help after her truck was damaged, only to harm her. Christina's case is a heartbreaking puzzle. Each piece of evidence, the damaged truck, the scattered heirlooms, the found dog, feels like it should lead to an answer, but instead, they just create more questions. Why did she leave her friend's house so suddenly? What happened to her truck? And most importantly, where is she? Despite searches, Her case has gone cold. Christina Lynn Bastion stepped out into the desert night and was consumed by it, leaving behind a fragmented trail that leads nowhere. 7 stories, spanning 5 decades, all tied together by a single, fateful holiday. Patricia Spencer, Pamela Hobley, Nima Louise Carter, Christy Lynn Vork, William Dudley, Hyunjong Song, and Christina Lynn Bastion. Their names represent more than just unsolved case files. They are empty chairs at dinner tables and unanswered questions that echo through generations. For their families, every Halloween is a painful anniversary of the day their world shattered. They live caught between hope and despair, forever searching for a loved one who simply walked into the night and never came back. While the costumes are put away and the jack-o'-lanterns fade, the real horror of these stories lingers, the chilling, silent mystery of what happened when they vanished into the dark.